Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is going to be a little different. There was a question that came up in a course I was teaching, and we were looking at some of the differences between Apex and Flow when developing in Salesforce. And the question came up about how does Flow handle SOQL queries? More specifically, can you get into trouble by getting too close to the SOQL query limit when you're using flows? And I didn't know the answer. I know I've seen in the past flows doing some unexpected behaviors that would cause problems, specifically during data loads. And but I didn't know specifically whether the SOQL query was going to be an issue. The behavior I'd seen before made me think it was treating, when you were working on 200 records, that it was treating them as 200 individual records, which of course will cause problems. So what I decided to do was just run an experiment and see what I could find. So, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Again, not that it's earth-shattering, but maybe two things I think of interest will come out of this. One is the results, like how does Flow help us with SOQL query when it comes to limits, and then what are ways we can, what are different maybe ways we can experiment on a system to find out information when we don't either have it available to us or we don't feel like looking it up. So that's what I did. So let's just jump in. So here's a flow that I created, very, very simple flow. It's going to update anytime a contact record is updated. This is going to run. And what we want to do is update an account, of a field on the account associated to this contact. Again, very simple, not a real world example, but I think it'll illustrate our purpose. So first step is get the account, and we are going to grab the account associated with this contact, and we do that by querying. Get records is a query. It doesn't look like it here in the flow context, but that is what's happening. We are literally making a SOQL query out of this. And we're just grabbing one where the account ID, the ID on the account matches the ID on the contact. Very simple. And then what we're going to do is just something, again, very silly, but just make a change. We're going to take the contact description and copy that on top of the account description. And then at the very end, we will update the accounts, and that's the end of it. So that will definitely make a SOQL query here on the get account. Now the question is, if we update multiple contacts, is it going to run this query multiple times, or is there some infrastructure underneath the flow running that's going to save us from that? So hopefully there is. And so to experiment with this, one way we could execute, obviously I could take a contact, make a change, and save it, but that's not really going to prove the what I'm looking for, like how many SOQL queries actually get generated when we're operating with one. It just doesn't matter. But if we were to operate with 20 or 200. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to Apex so that we can actually run some code that's going to update all the contacts in the system. And this is a test environment, so there's not that many. There's like 32. So then we can see what happens. Do we get one or two SOQL queries, or do we get 32? So let's switch over to the code and take a look at that. So step one is we are going to just query all the contacts in the system. And then what we'll do next is loop through them, update their descriptions, and then, or change the descriptions, and then we'll run an update on the contact list. And that should be enough to invoke our flow. And just update them at the end. All right. So when we run this, it's going to grab all the, from. When we run this, it's going to grab all the context in the system. Again, I think there's 32. And then it's going to make the updates to the description. When we actually hit this update line, it should invoke the flow. And again, it'll, the question is, does it generate 32 SOQL queries or fewer? So hopefully fewer. So let's just execute it. And in the logs by default collect a lot of information, and some of that is system limit information. So that's what we're looking for here. So I can filter by the word queries, all lowercase, and I know it's going to find this line, number of SOQL queries. And we can see we got 2 out of 100. So so clearly the flow mechanism, whatever the flow context is running, is doing some bulkification for us. When we're working in Apex, we have to explicitly make sure we're always working with collections and bulkify our processes. But we can see from this experiment that the flow is doing it for us. So, maybe not earth-shattering news, but good to know. And I hope seeing that when we use anonymous Apex, we can actually use it for experimental purposes such as this. If there's something curious about the system, we can just run a little bit of Apex to make something happen and see what the results are. This also is very helpful in troubleshooting and debugging when we to issues. Of course, keep your experiments to your sandboxes and to your dev environments. Don't try not to do too much of this stuff in production. So that's it. Short and sweet today. If you've got any questions, one of the things, I haven't really worked with flows before on this channel, but certainly if that's of interest to anyone, let me know. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more information on flows, or if you have any questions about what something does or best practices, really anything, flows or Apex. I'd be glad to answer them in an upcoming video. Also, if some of this stuff that I talked about is new to you, particularly like SOQL queries, if that's not a a comfort zone for you, I encourage you to grab my SOQL crash course. It's a free download. It's gonna has a few practical SOQL queries that you can use in your day-to-day work as an admin, and explains, gives a breakdown and an explanation. So you can see that at the link at the bottom of this video. Also, the link is in the description of this video. And that is it. Until next time, have a great week.